We force ourselves too much, give too much, until we forget just being. Hi, I'm Isabel Rolo, and welcome to the show, Let It Shine.
With what I'm doing is I try to give people a light at the end of the tunnel. You know, you try to help people to know they deserve, okay? Not to say I want, to say I deserve. You know, unlimited future, happiness. People are like little cups sitting on a table. If you see an empty cup sitting on a table, everybody dumps their garbage into it. Not even trying to be mean, it just seems like a place to put it, you know. If it's filled up with even water, they don't put anything in it. So when you're born, you're like a little empty cup, you know, and people can only pour in what they have inside themselves. You know, so sometimes they dump all their bad beliefs or prejudices or whatever inside of a little empty cup, and then that person has all that garbage inside of it. You know, so what I try to do, or they've had someone tell them they're not good enough or something's wrong with them, I try to fill them up with the truth. And the truth is that they deserve unlimited future, unlimited happiness, unlimited compliments, appreciation. And when they fill themselves up with that, they feel good about themselves, and then there's no room for anybody to dump any garbage in on them, not even themselves. So I write little papers that I give to people. One of them's called No Pissing in the Pool of Consciousness, and that's what that paper is about. And then I have no picking on the puppy, because people can say I love you to everyone, but they never say I love you to their little spirit. And their little spirit's like a puppy, you know, that's been abandoned, and it's working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for them. You know, when they cut themselves, it heals and stuff, and it never gets a pat on the back. So I tell them in my little writings, you know, to say I love you in their name, because their spirit's name, same name as them, all right? And it's like telling it what a good job it's doing. It gets happy with them. Because when you're doing too much for everybody else but yourself, it causes you to resent. And resentment causes cancer. Okay? And so you want they need to listen to that and know that's their spirit when they resent, saying, stop it, you're part of the problem. Do less, give less, slow down. Okay? Because that's a lot of times people are getting sick because their body is saying no for them. It's saying, you know, they do things they really don't want to do, or they do too much, and then and then their body gets sick. And if they can't learn to say, you know, that just doesn't work for me, or that's just not good for me, which is a polite way of saying, no, I'm not going to do it, you know, then their body will get sick and say no for them. So I'm trying to help keep them healthy, number one, you know, trying to get them to like themselves, number two, and help them say how they feel.
The key is being a little bit selfish, or give more
not selfish,
to yourself?
Not selfish. I don't think it's selfish. It's to know that has to be a balance in the universe. Mm-hmm. Okay? And the universe is always trying to create a balance in people's life. And you can love someone and care for someone, but if you're doing more for that person than they're doing for themselves, then they're going to end up finding fault with you, criticizing you, all right? And so you're not really benefiting them, mm-hmm. you know, because it's like dope dealers' money, or like gambling money slips through your finger. What you don't earn, you don't hold on to. So if you earn it yourself, then you hold on to it. But if somebody gives to you, it's almost like a waste of people's time and energy. A little bit you help, but you have to listen to that gut feeling that says, no, you're not helping, you're hurting the situation. You know, so it's not really selfishness, because sometimes I had a girlfriend who used to say, you know, Linda, sometimes you got to be cruel to be kind. You know, so you got to be cruel to be kind, you know. Yeah, and so she used to say that because she thought, you know, I gave too much or did too much, you know. And I understand what she means, you know. So I listen to my gut feeling that says, okay, you've done enough here. It's time for them to do for themselves, all right. And the hardest thing, especially for a mother to say, is no. All right, you know, because they want to give, they want to help. But now it's a bit of a problem because kids are staying home till they're 25, 30 years old, and the parents are, they not only finished raising them, but now they're continuing to raise them and their grandkids and everybody else. And that gets to be a little tough, you know. So at a certain point, you're not helping, you know, by doing more. So I would say it's not selfishness, it's realizing that if you don't stop doing something when you're doing too much for people, it's actually keeping them from accepting responsibility, growing up, becoming an individual, and someone that can take care of himself and others. So you're actually hurting more than you're helping sometimes. And everybody needs a little help now and then, all right? And everybody needs so I'm not saying never, but you have to have limits, or else it creates more problems than it solves.
So just be cruel.
Be cruel to be kind. Well, sometimes, they may think of it as being cruel, and I mean, and when you have kids, you know, they can, you know, be upset when you start saying no to them, you know. So, and big kids do too, you know. So, and another thing, you know, when my girlfriend who told me that sometimes you got to be cruel to be kind, she was an astrologer, and she needed to kind of practice what she preached in a way, because she was a real giver, you know, and she gave, and she did get cancer. And before she died of her cancer, she used to tell me things about astrology. You know, she'd say, "Oh, Linda, you have a double eclipse in your 7th house of marriage." I'd say, "What does that mean?" Because she was always talking astrology. And she'd say, "Oh, learner takes out, solar brings in. Looks like you have a change coming in 1989. And she told me this in 1985. So I didn't pay any attention to her. In 1989, I divorced the doctor November the 3rd and married the attorney December 3rd. That was a double eclipse. So that kind of, nobody could have predicted that, right? You know, and then she said, "You're moving." And I said, "No, I'm not moving. I don't care about your astrology. I'm on Balboa Island. I'm going to stay here." And she said, "Sorry, you have an exact hit in the home. You're moving." And 3 days later, I got a notice in the mail saying, "You're on a month-to-month. My son has moved home. You have to move out." And so when she did that enough times, I started saying, well, there is another force working. And if there's another force working that makes changes in your life, I want to know what it is, so I can be a little bit more prepared. And so during the last 8 years of her life, she was my very dearest best friend. She taught me how to predict through these eclipse points, and taught me astrology. You know, so the hands are more what's going on a subconscious level. Sometimes even the person's not even aware of that I'm reading. And the cards, so I'm reading the energy in their hands. All right, and when they do the cards, when I do the cards with them, their energy pulls the cards, and I just read them.
How do you read the energy?
When they put their hands out.
So, for example.
So you put your hands out, and if someone isn't open to change, they hold their hand like that. So I open it, and it's going to spring load. And it's going to close, see? And so if they, like, you like yourself and you trust yourself, so that's showing up. If you weren't, it would curl up like that. And I would pull it down, it'd pop right back. Okay. So people don't, they go, "Oh my," when I show them, "Oh, you don't trust men," I'll say to somebody, then they'll say, "Oh, I didn't know my hands did that," you know? So I've read so many hands that the hands kind of talk to me, and I see if they say, "Oh, I want to make a change," but they're holding in their hands like this, and it pops back. I go, "No, they're not going to make that change." So the hands, I read the energy, The cards, their energy pulls it, and I read it. But I try to
You
have.
got the cards.
Yes, I've got.
Tell
the
me
cards.
about your card.
Well, when I was a young girl, yeah,
Blessing.
yeah. When I was a young girl, I went to see a psychic, and she had seen Hitler when she was a little girl. Her name was Ursula. She was from Germany. And the minute I walked in, she said to me, "Why do you come to me? You're psychic." I go,
Yeah.
"I'm not psychic." And she goes, "Yes, and you're going to make a lot of money with the hands," because she didn't read palms, she just read cards. She goes, "And you're going to make, well, anyway, you're going to, now when you do the reading," she went like this to me, and I thought, what the heck's she talking about? I'm not psychic, right? You know? She goes, and she kept saying, when you don't read Tara, because when you put the death card down, you're planting a bad seed. That person will think that.
So I would say referral. Also, you want to look for somebody that does everything in the light. You want to stay away from anybody that's sort of dark. The darkness will be things like if they want to do something that put a curse, voodoo, dark magic, you know, the darkness. You want to stay in the light, but I would say referral and follow. Everybody's intuitive, so follow your own intuition about it. If you don't feel comfortable with that person, then you know what? Don't sit down. Don't sit down. Listen to your intuition.
What is your opinion about the psychics that they told you, oh, you can take a course in you or your family? Is such a thing like a course in the people?
Well, no. There is not a such thing as a curse. However, we as souls, we manifest into human form, and I'll get into that more in a moment too. We manifest into human form to learn lessons. We come to this earth for very rapid evolution. We're only here for 7, 8, 9 decades, however long we're here, and we have to learn lessons and we have to evolve. Because it's important to learn lessons, a group of souls will gravitate towards each other if they all have that same lesson. So people talk about, for instance, let's just say the Kennedy family. People talk about the Kennedy curse, being assassinated, dying young, just all the different problems that the Kennedy family, you know, has been through. Well, there's no such thing as the Kennedy curse. It says all those souls had that lesson to learn, and that was their evolution, and they helped each other. They helped each other learn their own lessons by watching other family members go through it. So you want to stay away from anything that has to do with, you know, if somebody says, I can remove this curse, and they usually ask for a huge sum of money. And so you want to be very careful about that, and because in my opinion, there's no such thing.
Oh, wonderful. What else you do, Candy?
Well, I teach meditation, and meditation is helpful because, again, if you go inward, if you just let go of the day-to-day stress, take that deep breath, go inward, you can find answers within yourself. You know the story of Aladdin's lamp? And you know, and he rubbed the lamp and this genie appeared. What the genie is, it's our internal genius. We have the ability to grant our own wishes. We all have a genius, a genius that lives inside of us. And so meditation is kind of like rubbing that lamp to allow that inner genie to come out. So I teach people how to meditate. I lead people in meditation groups. I do energy healing. And with energy healing, it's not so much that you come to me with an illness, an ailment, and you walk out without it. You can get to the source of it, and that helps heal it. And sometimes the energy healing is just about being at peace. When we let go of the resistance, the steps to illness, it starts with resistance. We don't like our boss. We don't like the traffic. We're mad at our spouse. Whatever it is, we have a resistance. When we push against something, it causes stress. That's the origin of stress is resistance. We're pushing. It's our life, and we're pushing away from it. And so when you just embrace it and you accept it, and you honor it, and then you can start to change it. But resistance causes stress, and stress causes illness. So when you let go, when you can get to the source of the stress, the source of the resistance, the body will start to heal. It's very, so those are the things that I do. Most people love the tarot, love the palm, love the, you know, they want answers. Everybody wants answers. And we get them. We get them through the different things that I do.
What did you see for this year, the 2010?
2010, I feel, is going to be an interesting year. I feel that there will be more strange weather patterns that we've been seeing.
Like what? Snow in California? I mean,
well,
I
think all over. But yeah, we're going to see more strange weather. We're going to see more earthquakes.
Wow.
I get the feeling also that there will be a lot of what we call icons in our society, kind of leaving the earth. You know, people that, and some of them are, you know, they're older and it's time for them to leave. But I get that feeling that people that that we look up to and stuff like that, I feel that there will be some important people that we care about leaving the earth. And I see the economy, I feel like it's going to take a rise. I feel like we have one more dip, and then it levels out. So I think we're not completely finished with the roller coaster.
The light, too much light in the studio.
But I don't think we're completely finished with the roller coaster of the economy yet either. And so I think it's going to be an interesting year.
Things will be improved, at least a little?
By the end of the year, I think things are going to be better. But I think the 2010, I think, is still a little bit of, like I said, we're going to have some ups and downs and some interesting weather and just some interesting things on the news. I do see more earthquakes coming in around the world.
Something good?
Well, it's always good. It's always good because you know, we're here.
Yeah.
We're here, and as long as we are here, we are growing and we're learning and we're teaching each other. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like the year is going to end on a very, very high note.
What do you see for California?
California, I feel that it's going to go through a huge, huge change. I think that we're going to turn the clock back to the early 1960s as far as the government and how the government is run. I think we're going to go back to a part-time government. I think we're going to turn the clock back and kind of start over. And I think there's going to be a lot of accountability in California government, because this is the most beautiful state. It's a wonderful state, and unfortunately, it's you know, the economy and the different things that have happened in California are running it into the ground. So I think we're going to, like I said, turn the clock back, and we're going to all take a deep breath, and we're going to start over. And I think California is going to be very, very strong by the end of this year, and especially as we get into 2011.
In better shape, I hope.
I think we're going to be in better shape. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Coming back to your work like a psychic, what is the more strange question that the people ask you?
The strange question that people ask? Well, I don't know if this is answering the question, if this is a strange question, but the way I'm a little bit different from other psychics or other intuitive workers is that when people come to me and they say that they want to become more spiritual, I say you already are. You already are spiritual. You are a spiritual being having the human experience. What we are doing here on earth is learning how to be human. Being human is very, very difficult. Just merging onto the 405 freeway, we experience about 2 or 3 emotions. We have fear, we have anger, we have confusion. Sometimes we don't know what direction we're going. And so becoming human is why we're here. We have a lot of emotions, we have a lot of difficulties, and so that's kind of how I differ a little bit from other psychics. Is I believe that we already know that we're spiritual beings, but what we don't know about ourselves is that we're here to have a human experience. We're not human beings looking for a spiritual experience. But I think I don't know if it's a strange question, but people are very basic. They want to know about their family. They want to know about their children, their spouse, jobs, their future, their health. A lot of concern about, because people are living longer, and so people have elderly parents now. And so a lot of the people that come and see me want to know about the health of their parents. And where, 40, 50 years ago, people don't live as long as they live now. And so we have new concerns about raising our children at the same time, watching our parents get old. But people ask very basic, very basic questions, And the other thing is that sometimes we're not supposed to know. Sometimes life has to just be a mystery. We don't get to know everything. I tell people, if I had the ability to know everything.
So, in other words, the men hold the control of the world more now than ever?
I think so. I believe so. There are other things, other indicators, like, for example, the Earth emits a frequency, and that has actually been getting faster and increasing over the last 15 years. There's more people that are becoming aware about different spiritual paths and different belief systems. They're becoming more sensitive to working with energy. And I also think, too, that we're beginning to learn how to have better control in manifesting our reality. We had the big movie called The Secret that came out. People are beginning to learn more about law of attraction. I think this is a time where things are speeding up for us, and we get to have the results come back to us more quickly, and so we have to really kind of learn how what we're doing is influencing what we're experiencing in return. And it's becoming kind of a crash course because it's coming faster and faster and faster.
We must be scared for the future, or we must be happy than it's coming?
I believe that when there is change, it's always bumpy, but that's sort of the nature of how change goes. And it's kind of like a cleansing away of the things that no longer work so that new beautiful things can emerge. For example, with the Dark Ages, we then had the Golden Era that came out of that. So, you have to take the good with the bad, and if you focus on what you want to create, then you're able to create that. If you focus on being afraid, you can get paralyzed and stuck in that view. There's another thing personally that I believe would be very helpful for people to become aware of. Actually there's two things. One is a greater awareness of our environment and what's happening on the planet. There's certainly a huge amount of climate change and global breakdown that's happening right now. So for me, I believe personally that this is a time for us to become more in tune with our planet as well. Interestingly, at the same time that we're having this 2012 moment, Venus is actually coming into transit with that at the same time. So there's a lot of people that are interpreting that as a return of the divine feminine. So I think this is a really good moment to jump on to really taking into account that we're a complete entire system, that we're all interconnected. We can't just operate individually and not take into consideration the ramifications that we have on the things around us. Some really good examples have happened in recent years. That there have been more dramatic earthquakes and tsunamis. In the big tsunami that happened in 2005, I believe, there were all of the indigenous cultures that lived in the Indonesia area. All of them were tuned in enough spiritually and energetically that they all went upland to safety before anyone even knew that the water was coming. And the same is true of all of the wildlife. There was a reservation that was right on the water. All of the animals went upland, and the park rangers were actually like, we didn't even lose a single rabbit. Like, every animal was saved. There was also a bungalow where people were renting out little huts to tourists, and one of their enticements to rent there was that they would have elephants that the tourists would get to ride on. Well, before anyone knew that the water was coming, the elephants that have been working with these humans for quite some time came to all of the doors and started stomping and trumpeting and alarming the people, and the owners had never seen them behave this way before, so they knew something important was happening. So they tried to bring out all of their clients, and a couple of them said, you guys are crazy, we're not going to jump on an elephant and just go wherever it wants us to go. But most of them did. And the elephants took all of the people up to safety who were willing to come out of the bungalow. And this was before anybody had any idea that the water was coming. So one of the things that I think is really important is that we spiritually tune in to what's going on around us. I believe that if we are tuned in, we will be led to safety if we need to. We will know when we need to act. We'll know exactly what actions we need to take, and that we'll be safe and we'll be able to make it out. I was actually driving through the Badlands in western Colorado at one point, and there was a big storm, and I was at the base of a mesa going along the highway, and they had put an avocado plantation on top of the mesa, and the dirt there is very, it's like powdered sugar. It's very, very fine. They have major erosion issues. So having something that needs to be saturated heavily, and then it was raining, caused a landslide. Just as I was driving underneath the bottom of the mesa, a chunk of this mesa fell apart from the mountain and crumbled down onto the highway. And just before it happened, one of my spirit guides actually leaned up from the back seat and said in my ear, "Hit the gas now." And it had this whole energy of just complete calmness. And I usually question everything.
And so you were telling me.
Yeah, I'm a retired detective, so I'm always like wanting evidence. But for some reason, that sort of instilled a lot of calmness. And I just hit the gas, and I didn't know why, I just did. And then I look up and I see the side of the mountain breaking away and coming down onto the highway. And my car was the only one that made it out. Nobody else was hurt, but they were blockaded for many, many hours. So, you know, back to just being really tuned in. I've personally experienced that. So I don't think you have to be indigenous and running around with a bow and arrow to have that count for you. I think it could be anybody who spiritually is practicing something where they're just like listening and they're really paying attention.
So in other words, or in the same words.
Son personas muy mágicas. Son personas que les encanta la música, el movimiento, no les gusta nada estático, les encanta soñar, o sea que son personas realmente curiosas, te diría yo. También son personas que tienen mucha energía referente a los demás. Entonces hay veces que pueden estar muy bien o pueden estar muy mal. Depende de la energía que se le envuelve, ¿no? O depende de la persona que está con ella. El 8 es la fuerza. La persona 8 será una persona que tendrá mucha tenacidad, mucha voluntad y que siempre sabrá qué es lo que quiere. El 9 es una persona muy servicial, o sea, parte de su felicidad siempre será poder servir a los demás, ¿no? O sea, a un 9 le encanta que lo necesiten. Y su parte de dificultad será que le va a costar mucho pedir que le ayuden, porque él cree que solo él puede ayudar. El 10 es una persona líder, una persona con mucho carácter, con una capacidad de mando, con una capacidad de organización y de llevar varias personas a la vez, o sea, tiene una facilidad muy importante. Pero curiosamente el 10 no soporta que lo manden. ¿Por qué? Porque para mandar ya manda él. O sea que todo tiene su lógica, ¿no?
Se entiende.
Se entiende perfectamente bien. Y el 11, en esa numerología, que llega hasta el 11, es un número maestro. Lo que ocurre es que a mí siempre me preguntan, bueno, pero es que yo no soy maestra. No. Una persona puede ser maestro en su forma de vivir, en su forma de ser, en su forma de ver la vida, en su forma de accionar. O sea, no tiene por qué ser un maestro como tenemos catalogado de que enseña, ¿no? No, no tiene por qué. O sea, y todos los números son en positivo o en negativo. O sea, que lo que he dicho también puede estar en negativo. Entonces, por eso, para mí ha sido muy importante, en una fecha de nacimiento de una persona, poderle decir qué capacidad hay en ella, aunque no se lo crea, porque está, pero qué problema va a tener en la acción, porque también está. O sea que,
también se ve eso en los
exacto, le das totalmente la información de dónde, cuándo y por dónde tiene que ir ella, ¿no? Que es lo que pienso yo que ha sido una de las cosas que para mí han sido más fáciles de que la gente lo cogiese, porque es como darle un mapa de lo que él es y de lo que hay en él que no lo cree. Entonces, para mí eso es muy importante.
¿Crees en el destino?
Creo en el destino. El destino lo tenemos muy marcado. Lo que muchas veces, lo que no está marcado en absoluto es cómo haremos este destino. pero lo que somos solo podemos cambiarlo para ser la máxima de positividad que hay en nosotros, pero no vamos a cambiar el destino. Tenemos una hora de llegada y una hora de salida.
¿Cómo averiguamos cuál es nuestro número?
Lo averiguamos, por ejemplo, en nuestro día de nacimiento, en el día del mes, es nuestra parte interna, es lo que somos en el alma, o sea, es lo que realmente tenemos que expresar. El mes es donde está nuestra dificultad, lo que realmente nos va a costar a realizar, a creer. Que eso no quiere decir que cuando lo trabajes, eso desaparece. Entonces, si lo trabajas, es un potencial que tienes, porque te lo has trabajado y sabes perfectamente bien qué cualidad tiene aquella vibración del número. Los 2 dígitos del año que nacemos es donde está nuestra capacidad, es donde está nuestra facilidad de hacer las cosas, ¿no? O sea, por ejemplo, un 3 que tengan el regalo divino, o sea, que sea pues del 92, 9 y 2, 12, que será un 3, esta persona será muy simpática, con una gran capacidad de dones como relación pública, pero igual es una persona que en su parte personal, particular, pues puede ser muy cerrada, pero que hay un don en ella. Entonces solo es que le ayudes a que este don se lo crea, entienda que lo tiene él, pero que no lo tienen las demás personas, y que lo aplique en su vida personal, para que sea agradable, simpático, comunicativo y expresivo. Entonces, el año es nuestro destino. Y la vida, que es donde tenemos que ir, es toda nuestra, sumando todos los números. El día, el mes y todo el año. Entonces nos da nuestro número de vida.
Eso es donde tenemos que
dirigirnos. Es donde tenemos que dirigirnos, sí. Es como hacer todo el camino para llegar realmente a esta vibración. Que ya la tienes dada, pero que la tienes que experimentar, la tienes que abrir, la tienes que elaborar, la tienes que vivir, ¿no? Por esto, para mí es muy importante el conocimiento de la numerología, que por eso la enseño, porque la gente tiene que entender a la gente. Muchas veces queremos cambiar a alguien y es que no podemos hacer esto. O sea, la persona es como es porque lo necesita, porque no sabemos realmente qué habrá en su vida, no sabemos cómo va a terminar su vida. Igual sacamos o queremos que un hijo sea de una forma y nos equivocamos, porque su destino, su vida, habrá un momento que va a necesitar aquello que en un momento nosotros no entendíamos.
¿En tus seminarios o workshop?
Sí.
¿Enseñas a partir de la numerología cómo entender a los demás?
Sí, o sea, la numerología para mí es una herramienta muy importante. Es posible que también reconozca que ha sido tan importante porque las personas han cambiado con mucha facilidad. O sea, que es una herramienta que cuando te la trabajas, la herramienta da un fruto. Entonces la numerología primero vale para entenderte a ti, como eres, tener muy claro qué actitud, qué forma estás tú expresando, porque hay veces que uno expresa lo que no es, entonces dice que no lo entienden. Eso ocurre muchas veces. Es que no me entienden, pero claro, si no te expresas como eres, no te van a entender nunca, ¿no? Y después porque la persona entienda pues a su pareja, a los hijos, que pienso yo que los hijos se tienen que entender porque hay problemas. Yo soy madre de 4 hijos y mi educación en ellos me ha enseñado a mí misma. Y después para que realmente se entienda la gente, o sea, comprenda la gente, ¿no? Unos a los otros.
¿A quién enseñas más? ¿A hombres o a mujeres en tus workshops?
A mujeres. No, porque yo pienso que la mujer tenemos un trabajo muy importante. Es posible que yo me identifique mucho con ese trabajo. Pienso que la mujer, Dios nos ha dado un valor increíble, que es el de poder crear hijos, personas. Entonces, todo esto consta en que tenemos una gran responsabilidad. Cómo educamos, cómo enseñamos, cómo cuidamos. Y los hijos los cuidan, los educan las mujeres. El padre está allí, evidentemente que está, pero ya en el momento en que tú engendras un hijo, depende de lo que tú piensas, depende de lo que tú sientas, depende de lo que tú esperas en la vida, le estás incluyendo al hijo. Entonces yo pienso que la mujer tiene un valor incalculable que no se lo reconoce. Y esta es mi enseñanza, que la mujer se reconozca todo lo poderosa que es.
Acerca de los hombres, ¿también tienes algo para
Sí,
entenderlos mejor?
También enseño el mismo taller de mujeres, está en la esencia del hombre también. Porque evidentemente como mujer me gustan los hombres. Indiscutiblemente, ¿no? Entonces, pues también yo he aprendido muchísimo en el taller de los hombres porque he tenido la capacidad de entenderlos, que muchas veces el hombre no es lo que aparentemente a la sociedad le coloca.
¿Y cómo es un hombre, desde tu punto de vista?
Un hombre para mí es una persona con mucha capacidad, porque así la madre ya cuando nace le inculca, tienes un poder, eres un hombre, esa palabra hombre pesa mucho, pero es que tiene que pesar, porque la de la mujer también pesa. Entonces este hombre, yo me he dado cuenta que en el fondo es un niño que necesita ser importante, que se le reconozca todo lo que es y que se lo cuide. ¿Por qué? Porque va creciendo, y aunque hay veces que hay mujeres me dicen, bueno, pero la mujer también crece. Sí, pero es que la mujer es muy creativa y el hombre no lo es tanto, aunque somos la mitad masculino, la mitad femenino, ¿no? Pero el hombre lo que le ocurre es que se encuentra muy solo y sus emociones no las abre. ¿Por qué? Porque también se dice que el hombre, no llores, los niños no lloran. ¿Por qué no? Sí, yo siempre he pensado que el llanto, el lloro, cuando una persona llora, yo he llorado mucho, me he reído mucho, pero he llorado mucho, siempre he sentido el placer de llorar, de ver como un cuerpo humano te salen las lágrimas por los ojos. ¿Qué tiene que sentir este cuerpo, esta máquina tan perfecta que el Creador nos hizo, para que salte tanta agua por unos ojos que normalmente no está? ¿Cómo tiene que moverse todo el cuerpo, no? Entonces pienso que las emociones son importantes.
If our parents abused us, so often we seek somebody who continues that. Hopefully some people realize it and go the other direction, but not always.
So you think that will be very necessary to create one school for women, to teach women to love themselves first?
It needs to be something that's just paramount. It's something that men need to love themselves too. I mean, women have put an awful pressure on men to fill them up and make things different. And sure, there's some real issues with the male side at times, but there's some fabulous men out there. And we need not to point our fingers at other people. We need to take full responsibility for ourselves and not be a victim any longer. And so often when we are a victim, we don't realize that that's what's happening. We need to unlearn that. We need to learn not to fall into that old story. We need to be able to create new stories of that power within us to love ourselves and forgive ourselves, and to not be ashamed to step forward and say, no, you can't treat me like this. And we need to unite as women. We need to support one another. We need to support ourselves in loving and honoring each other. So many other clans and tribes and other indigenous worlds, the women, they lived and worked together to support each other, and the men went and did what they had to do to bring the food home. And our society has gotten very strange about that.
Women, we do everything almost.
Well, and there's a disconnect from family, because so often people don't like being with the rest of their family. They've chosen families that are hard to be in. And so instead of living together in an interdependent way, they've struck out on their own, and then it becomes even more difficult. It's a very, it's not an easy solution, but it is there. It's a matter of being aware of it and awaken to it and start to move forward in acknowledgement and getting rid of the parts of ourselves that do not feel worthy, that do not want to be loved, that do not want to honor or be honored. And that's part of what I do, is to help people clean out those aspects of ourselves that really reinforce pain and suffering and sadness. And I want people to understand it's not like they go out saying, oh, hit me, but it's all this psychological debris that's, kind of call it, under the waterline, like an iceberg, the consciousness part we experience is only the very tip of the iceberg, and there's all this subconscious, unconscious energy below. And that really is what runs the show. We think the conscious self has really got it, but the obstacles and the resistance really comes from below the waterline. And that's another part of what I do, is to help people clear those parts.
Think that is a cat and behave like a cat.
Well, the cats like their independence. And they basically rule the roost and decide what they're going to do. It's mainly accommodating them. I have a cat who tells me when he goes to the bathroom so I can clean the litter box. That he's very particular. And he meows before he goes. He meows when he's done.
Very educated.
But making their accommodations clean is important to him. But cats are not nearly as needy as dogs. Dogs definitely have more needs, in my opinion, than cats do. Cats are not as fussy. They're happy. They're truly just happy being. And as long as the household is happy, as long as there isn't anybody mistreating their owner or mistreating someone in the family, they're calm. But they definitely can pick up on people who enter the home who are not good for the owner in one way or another. They're very, very sensitive to people. And they know when there's positive people and they know when there's negative people. And they will show with their actions.
And why it happens sometimes that, for example, a cat acting like a dog, or a dog act like a cat?
I can't answer that one. I don't know that one. It's personality.
Oh,
it's truly personality.
Is doginality or catinality? New words here.
It's like a tomboy, a girl that acts like a boy. You know, she likes sports. It just is. It's just part of personality.
Is any breed in particular, or any race, like cat or dog, more smart one than other? Like I heard lately that dogs are smarter than cat.
I think cats are smarter because they don't let you tell them what to do. They kind of rule everything. Dogs tend to please. And so dogs will be trained more. Dogs like that sort of, they're much more dependent. Dogs are much more dependent. As far as smarts, I don't know that one breed is any smarter than the other. But I do
capture your energy on paper. You go home, I go home, I do a piece of art, and then I come back and I can create images and
so we are
vision.
Pure art, and
you
each
are
person has a different colors, a different light.
Yes, and that's how I see human beings. I see us as works of art. And so I'm looking for all the different ways that I can show you what I see, the beauty in you and the love that's in you. And so this is one way of doing that. I brought another sample. This is of a friend of mine.
Beautiful. Is it a dove?
It's a dove.
Beautiful.
And there's ancient language there and images that I was able to move.
So you can see past lives there?
I can see past lives and but it's all symbolic, and I don't really know how to describe that other than there's something that has been said about the universe and fractals that the communication or the language of the universe is in geometry, in shapes and symbols and things, and for some reason that's how the energy comes up in the hand.
Which symbol you can see in my hand?
Well, right off the bat, in the center of your left hand, there is an ankh. And this ankh isn't just a regular Ankh. It's the one that's connected to Isis, and it has all of these green branches that are all around it. So to me, it's a very fertile sign. It reminds me of a person such as yourself that actually nourishes people, that really cares about people, and that creates magic wherever you go.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
This is in this hand.
That's it, right?
In the right hand.
And here is a triangle.
Oh.
And there's an eye in the middle of the triangle. So I think that I don't know what the symbol would mean to you, but to me, symbolically, this is a person that actually, when you meditate, when you dream, when you allow yourself just to go home inside of yourself, where you go is to the heart and mind of God. Straight.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, powerful.
And now, here are these symbols in the hands, and everything you touch, every person that you touch, every place that you go, you are leaving that energy with people, and you don't even have to say anything. You just touch them, and they receive that essence about you that says, I care.
So, Beryl, whatever you have, I hope that will be good. So this is part of you are.
Another thing is, not that I'm on a roll, I hear people, and I have a guy that actually told me this, I hear people say, I don't have enough love in my life, I wish I had more love in my life. And then they go in the bathroom and they look at themselves in the mirror and they go, ugh, who's that? As opposed to, here, what you're looking at is love. It is you. So love is available every day. So I say start your day every day by connecting with that being that you see in the mirror, and not only sending that being love, but also receiving that love.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So love, shine.
It's love. It's true.
You can see angels.
I can see angels. Now, how I do that, I couldn't ever describe to anyone. It's been something that I've been able to do since I was a child. And it's incredible to be even having this conversation with you to say, yes, I see angels because they're the most incredible sources of light that they're so loving. They're just constantly beaming love and praise and help and guidance. They're just beautiful beings. And they look like us in my mind. They reflect our beauty. They're constantly, reminding me of the beauty that's in all life. It's just pretty amazing.
How many angels we have?
I don't know that. It varies. I am aware that I have 3 substantial angels with me at all times. It has been my understanding or my experience that you have at least 3. And I think we even have more. I think that there really is a heavenly host available to us at any time that we want. Anytime that we reach out, it's an unlimited source. There are angels in a band. There's a band of angels that actually surround the earth, and they're holding humanity, and they're constantly sending in this energy of peace and love and understanding and acceptance. They're working with humanity.
You can say anything that you want.
Okay, good. All right then. Okay, so some of my drawings were photographed by someone who had Carillion photography, which is the photography that measures auras and can see energy fields around plants. Like this probably has a beautiful energy field now, probably about that big actually. So some of my drawings were photographed, and he could see that they had an energy field around them.
Anything, any object, any... Anything material has the aura?
Anything living like this would have an energy field to it.
For example, the table has the aura or no?
Well, that's a matter for discussion because probably to a very small degree, probably everything has some energy to it. This is just very slow.
Very slow.
Not moving much right now. Rocks might even, well, crystals of course have an energy field to them, but rocks probably have an energy field to them. They just move really slowly.
So, in other words, you are a teacher for psychics?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, I have an ongoing class for psychic development. Mm-hmm.
How a person can to develop a little bit?
How can they develop their psychic development? Meditate. I would probably say that is the very, very first thing a person should start to practice, to still their mind, to calm that chatter that's always going on pretty much right up here behind your forehead. You know, the data processing center manages all the information. When you still your mind, when you allow yourself to be quiet and still, that's when your wise mind, your inner knowing, can start talking to you. I, of course, happen to have a very good meditation CD.
You have?
Yes.
I had the opportunity to listen to your CD and it's wonderful.
You did listen to it?
Yes.
Oh, good.
It was wonderful.
Did it relax you?
Oh, yes, a lot. Thank you.
You are welcome. You are welcome. So people who use that CD find not only it relaxes them, over time they have just less anxiety. They're calmer. So how to develop your psychic abilities? That would be the first thing, is to spend 20 minutes every day in a time of quiet and start listening to your inner knowing.
Based on your experience, Catherine, who has this psychic ability? Everybody? A few?
Oh, that's a good, yes. Everybody is wired for it. We're born with so many abilities we aren't even aware of. And the psychic ability is as natural as speaking. It's as natural as breathing. It's just something that our culture doesn't recognize. Our culture, our education, all the training we grew up with is used to thinking that something is only real if you can see it with these two eyes and you can measure it. But there's a whole world out there of unseen energy that we are created to be able to perceive that and use it and work with it. So, to answer your question, everybody is psychic. Some people, that ability is probably sleeping. Some people may have put it away on purpose if they were made fun of or if it was not accepted as they grew up. But it's there in each person. It's part of who we are. And I bet your viewers could share some examples of times when they got a hunch that turned out to be true, or times when the phone rang and they knew who it was before the phone rang, or a dream that gave them information that was very helpful. All those are aspects of psychic ability.
In your opinion, why everybody must to develop the psychic ability?
Why would it be a good thing to do that?
And the reason why everybody must develop this? Or you don't recommend that everybody develop this path?
I think everybody needs to follow their own path and their own calling. And if you find psychic development interesting, that means your soul, your spirit is guiding you to do that. I believe your higher self guides you through what you find interesting and where your enthusiasm goes. So if you're curious about what I'm saying right now, then probably, yes, go ahead and develop it. The benefit to developing your psychic ability and your intuition is that you learn how to get your own guidance, your own information, your own truth. And one of my passions is for everybody to know how to access that, so that you don't have to trust what someone else says, because other people may have their own agenda, or they may be talking through their own filters, or they may actually be, dare I say, misinformed.
Mm-hmm. What is the first thing that you teach to one of your students?
What is the main thing I teach to my students? Well, that's a good question. I teach my students to listen to their higher self, always. And your higher self is more than your mind, it's more than your brain, it's even more than your heart. It's the whole part of you that knows what your own truth is. And it doesn't get all caught up in our personality and our emotions. And so when you learn, you can learn to talk to your higher self almost like I'm talking to you right now. So when I went to my psychic school, my teachers, whenever I asked a question, my teachers would say to me, well, ask your higher self. Which at the time I found annoying.
How you know that it's your higher self who is speaking with you?
Yes.
How you know?
How do you know? Well, in my classes, I teach people a couple things. One is there's an area in the center of your head where you can learn to hold your attention. It's kind of halfway between here and here.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than up here.
And how you do that?
Pardon me?
How you do this? You concentrate in this area?
It's a feeling. Yeah, you think about halfway between here and here and halfway between here and here. And you think about that, it's right in the center of your head. And you know that marble game where the marbles roll around and you try and get them in a little swoopy place? Well, you kind of think of there being a swoopy place right in the center of your head. You think of your center of attention as being a little ball of light, and you roll it back in there. It's easier if you close your eyes.
So you use visualization?
Yes. And also in my classes, I can help people feel where it is when I put my hands on their head. Okay, so one is to learn where your attention is and to learn what that feels like. And when you hold your attention right there in the center of your head, there's a new balance. So even right now, you could practice, or your viewers could practice, what does it feel like when you're up here forcing stuff? What does it feel like when you let your attention move back just a little bit? So that's the first thing. The other thing about listening to your higher self is your higher self never makes you feel bad. Your higher self is always kind and loving and gentle, never criticizes. So if you're hearing a voice that's saying, "You're wearing that today," that's not your higher self. That may be a relative's voice from the past or something. But
what happens if you hear a voice and say, "Darling, you look great today"? Is your higher self? Or
well, it might be your higher self. It might be